Everyone, if I could get your attention, please. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, February the 4th, 2020. The time is now 9:30 a.m. This regular meeting of the Commissioners Court of Smith County, Texas is now in session, and the meeting is called to order. I declare that a quorum is present, that all legal notices have been posted, and the court is duly called. This morning, Commissioner Terry Phillips will lead our invocation and our pledges. Please stand.
Dear Heavenly Fathers, thank you for your love and kind and mercies toward us, Lord. We just pray that you just bless everyone here today, Lord. We just pray that you just bless this Commissioners Court, that everything that we say and do will be pleasing to you, Lord. And we ask that you just bless us all. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
We are so appreciative that each one of you have taken time out of your day and your busy schedules to come be part of this Commissioners Court meeting, which we have every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. This morning we're going to begin our meeting as we do with every meeting, and that is with a public participation portion of the meeting. We urge any citizen who would like to speak on any item that's listed on the agenda or to suggest a future agenda item to come and participate during this time. All that we ask is you fill out a public participation form, which is in the rear of the room, just right outside that first set of double doors. If you'll fill that out and hand that to Ms. Murphy, we'll get you called up at the appropriate time here at the beginning of the meeting or when that agenda item is called. This morning I've received several agenda items, public participation forms to speak on agenda item number 1. And so we're going to move right into agenda item number 1 and allow those people that have signed up on that agenda item to speak first. I'll call you up and give you 3 minutes, as the clock would say, and I'll be a little bit generous on that time, too, because I know we have a very important issue to discuss and also a lot of folks here that want to say some things about that. But please fill out a public participation form if you'd like to speak so that I have a record of that, and we need to put that in the minutes. Item number 1 on the agenda is consider and take necessary action regarding the application made by Tycon Ready Mix, LLC, to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for a permit to construct and operate a new concrete batch plant proposed to be located on County Road 139, which is Burkett Road. TSEC customer number CN 605-733-740 and permit number 159582. First person I'll call up to the microphone is Mr. Robert Burkett.
I want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing me to share my concerns about what takes place there on Burkett Road. I've lived there 61 years. Now, Tycon Ready Mix has applied for an environmental permit from the Texas Commission on Environmental Control, which would allow them to batch as much as 6,000 yards of concrete a day. Each concrete truck hauls 10 yards of concrete. That's 600 trucks, weighing 70 to 75,000 pounds each day, total of 42 million pounds, not to mention the 50 semi-trucks of cement, approximately 130 semis of gravel, and 35 semis of sand. Burkett Road was built for a residential use. It would not take long to destroy this road. Your heavy haul permit says that every truck in the fleet must be permitted, including the county roads in which that vehicle runs. One question I would have today, how would that be possible according to your permit? It does not have enough space to list every county road. However, the person operating the truck, when they got a sale on another particular county road, would they take the time to come up here and add that to their list? But I'm forgetting about the fact that there are 10 concrete batch plants within an easy hauling distance of Burkett Road. Also, your permit states that, and I'm going to quote it, this permit is hereby canceled if any of the provisions of this permit are violated by the permit holder employee of the permit holder, driver, or anyone had an interest whatsoever in the load or the vehicle for which said permit is issued. I've got a couple of questions there. Is the purchaser of the product, is that what it's saying? Is he also liable? Because the consumer, it certainly sounds like the consumer could be. Is that a yes or no there? Can we make the consumer pay also for the road if he's buying a product and someone's hauling it in? And can we make the company in which hauls it pay for a road according to that statement? Your permit, once again, allows the permit holder is responsible for liability of all damages whatsoever, natural roadbed, road surface, bridges, culverts, signs, structures, fences, trees, right-of-way, etc. That may result from the movement, over any portion of Smith County roads. Could it be 600 trucks a day? Who knows? This is what their permit allows them to do. I would express to you that much weight on Burkett Road would destroy this road. It's 9/10 of a mile long. It's 4,752 feet in length. I did some research on Burkett Road. At a cost of $35 a linear foot, it would cost $166,320 to replace this road. I'm just making you aware of that. And my concern here this morning is that I just don't feel as though this permit should be permitted. So please, review this, do the right thing, and if you grant this permit, there goes Burkett Road. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burkett. Next up is Mr. Frankie Burkett, and by one point of clarification on that, I know we'll get into a lot more discussion here in a minute, but we actually don't grant or deny this permit application. It doesn't come through us, so I just want to be clear about that. But Mr. Burkett, you can go right ahead.
Well, thank you all. I lived on the road 2 more years than my brothers. You know, my big deal is I drive out my driveway and I see these air quality signs right by my driveway. I don't think nobody has the right to control my air. But, you know, we're going to get into permits. My wife holds a permit through the state of Texas for wildlife. You have to have the game warden come out and check. You got to be in an isolated looking area. We spent money on cages. And for instance, y'all live in Holly Tree, cut down a tree, and some little baby squirrels, they're going to die. They get on the internet, they look under the state, they find my wife and other people, and she gets these little squirrels and bottle feeds them. And, you know, it's not like she goes to bed at 10, gets up the next morning, drinks coffee. They got to be every 4 hours. I couldn't do that. And there's no way. She's got a big heart. She raises them, puts them in these cages. They got release doors up in the corner. They got to have a safe environment. I've got bamboo in my yard. Tarzan couldn't get through. You got me? So Blake back there will interview me pretty soon. You'll get a picture of the cages, a picture of the land, and my house is most affected. It's in my backyard. I don't know who these guys are. They pay that much, but we got a neighborhood, not a concrete place. And I will do legal action if, with my wife, she's had asthma for 20 years, if something's not done about it. So, you know, it's just not right to steal my air. I can live with the noise, the lights, but when she releases these animals, they're supposed to be in a safe environment. Most of them are nocturnal, possums, coons. The squirrels, I live in a pecan orchard. They're not going to go nowhere. So these animals at night, they got lights, concrete trucks, and these people start at 2 in the morning. Well, she may have to give up her permit. If she has a state permit, why does this guy get a state permit? So, and I'm going to get in touch with PETA, anybody I can on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Burkett. Dr. Kathy Glenn. Glim, I'm sorry. I read that incorrectly.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you again for hearing us out. Again, my name is Dr. Kathy Glim. My doctorate of pharmacy is from the University of Washington, and I have an undergrad in chemistry. I currently work as an emergency medicine pharmacist at Christus Mother Frances Hospital. My husband, our 8-month-old daughter, and I just live over 440 meters from the proposed site and would be within range for the particulate matter. I understand that this court doesn't review particulate matter, but I wanted to talk about how our community will be affected. So, particulate matter is a mix of particles or pollution that cannot be seen by the eye. These particles can be made up of dust, metal, soil, organic materials. The EPA follows this to include it for the air quality index, and the amount of particulate matter that they'd use is 2.5 and 10. So the PM of 10 have a diameter that are 10 micrometers. So dust, pollen, and mold. The PM of 2.5 are the fine inhalable particulates with a 2.5 micrometers. So to give you an idea of what that is, a strand of hair is 70 micrometers. So as you can tell, that's 30 times more than the pollution that could go into the air. The TCEQ is usually the ones that monitor the Texas air quality. And for example, last night I wanted to look at what our air quality in this area was, and it was good. There was a couple areas in Texas that were moderate, so I researched a little further as to what made them a moderate risk for pollution. And one of them was in South Texas, and it stated that light smoke from Mexico increased the air quality to a moderate risk. So if you think about that, across the border in Mexico was affecting our air pollution here. So this concrete batch plant would be closer proximity to the Burketts and Foxwood and all of our communities, including my own, that would have these particulate matters that would be able to increase that. I know I was talking about smoke, not the same as concrete dust. However, you got to remember that concrete's made of particulate matter as well. Per the EPA, there's no evidence for a safe level of exposure or threshold with no adverse effects occur. There's a large Medicaid study for children showing exposure to these particulate matters increase the incidence of lung issues and eventually increase the asthma and COPD. Aside from the dust, Mr. Burkett talked about all of the trucks, so you got to think about the diesel emissions that are coming from those trucks along our road lines. There are regulations from TCEQ, but most of it's focused on particulars or particles that you can see and not the ones that you can't. I know this topic is more appropriate for TCEQ, but I wanted you to know how passionate our community is. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clem.
Thank you.
Garrett Beardsma. I apologize, I mispronounced that. Boersma, come on up, Garrett.
Good morning. My name is Garrett Boersma, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. My wife and I live in the Flint area, and we're addressing the issue of the concrete batch plant because we're concerned with how that's going to impact our community. Let me first start by saying that last Saturday there was a meeting in the area at Grace Community Church where hundreds of local residents and Smith County constituents met and discussed and addressed this issue. It's an issue to me for really three reasons. Very quickly, number one, I want to emphasize this is really a fairly dense residential area. There's a lot of houses that have been built and a lot of communities that have been built in this immediate proximity. And these communities were built and these people bought their homes or built their homes with the understanding of having the lifestyle in that type of community that does not have this type of industrial application in the area. So this is really changing the dynamic of that immediate area. But additionally, it's a high-growth corridor. It's a high-growth corridor for our county, and so this type of business or application could adversely affect those property values, could adversely affect that future growth. But in addition to that, I want to focus on what Mr. Burkett talked about. The permit allows this organization to produce 6,000 cubic yards of concrete per day, I believe. And as he explained, that produces a tremendous amount of trucks and traffic specifically associated with this business. That's going to create a significant additional amount of traffic, a significant additional amount of queuing and congestion problems. I know we're widening the road, and that's a great thing, but this is going to create problems, and I think the biggest issue that I have is it has the potential to create safety problems. So we're asking that the court take a look at this issue very carefully, study it very carefully, and help us work with our state legislators and the TCEQ to make sure that a very informed, very careful decision about this plant is made, because frankly this is not an ideal location for this type of operation. Our contention is that it would be better served as a company, and our community would be better served if it was located in a more appropriate location. So we're asking for your assistance to help make sure this is carefully looked at and a wise decision for our community is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boersma. Scott Gillette.
County Commissioners, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Scott Gillette. I'm a board member for Foxwood Subdivision, which sits directly across the street from the proposed Tycon dry batch ready mix plant. So as you can imagine, we have a lot of interest in this project. On behalf of my family and all of our neighbors, we are worried that the quality of life that we invested in when we chose our neighborhoods will be taken away from us. Here's what we learned about what we can expect from the Tycon plant is built. Today, you may have heard about many different concerns. Too many for me to list, and I only have 3 minutes. We as neighbors all share in the same concerns, like the ones I would like to talk about today, and that is the quality of life, our lives. Now, when we talk about our quality of life, I should mention that we all moved in our homes because of the peaceful living. See, in our neighborhoods, you could walk around most evenings and all throughout the weekends, and you would find kids playing in the yards or riding their bikes to their friend's house, people jogging, bike clubs, biking alone. We do annual get-togethers, and we talk in the front yards often. It kind of reminds me of the times when you and I grew up, where we had no choice but to go outside because we didn't have these video game systems. If Tycon has its way, those kids won't play outside anymore, and those neighbors won't be neighborly, as we have grown to be accustomed to, because no one will want to go outside anymore. Why? Well, it's simple. There's carcinic dust pollutants flying around throughout the air. There's noise that this plant will emit, so the quiet neighborhood that we all bought into isn't so quiet. I didn't even mention the lights. They'll light up the skies so bright you would almost think this would rival standing in Times Square. Does anyone know what time these plants normally start? It's between 1 and 2 a.m. Could you imagine the noise the Tycon plant will make in the still of the night? How's it going to affect those kids that are trying to rest up for those important standardized testing or finals the next morning? The last thing I want to leave you with is the issues with the water pressure in Flint. Our water pressure is very weak, especially in the summertime when people regularly water their lawns. Right now, it takes forever to fill a bathtub or from doing simple tasks that we take for granted. So we don't even want to think about how Tycon's going to affect our water and that supply. I'll wrap it up real quick. At 50 trucks per day, that's 1,650 gallons that they would use. 33 gallons per month. That equals a 12.2 homes. The state average for batch concrete plants are 75 trucks a day. It's roughly 2,500 gallons per day, 49,500 gallons per month, or 18.3 homes a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. Mr. Buchanan, Todd Buchanan.
Your Honor, my name is Todd Buchanan, and I live in Forest Glen South subdivision at 11410 Cedar Glen in Flint. As the Forest Glen South Homeowners Association president, I am representing 70 homes in our HOA, which is on Burkett Road, and a portion of our subdivision resides within the 440-yard radius of the proposed concrete batch processing plant. Your Honor, there are 3 HOA subdivisions and approximately 25 homes on Burkett Road between County Road 140 and FM 2868. Based on our research, there are approximately 240 homes, an average of $300,000 in value, and a total investment of $70 million. Your Honor, this just represents the homes that are on Burkett Road. It does not include the other homes and subdivisions in the 1-mile radius that will be impacted. Your Honor, home value is a large percentage of a family's net worth, typically 25 to 40%. I implore you to consider the impact that would occur if 240 families experienced a minimum of 20 to 25% loss in value on $70 million. The immediate response of this community, the day they filed the permit, is a clear indication that no prospective homeowner would want to live next to a batch processing plant, and our 25% estimate is likely highly understated. Your Honor, please additionally consider the impact to Smith County from a lost and appraised taxable value on $70 million. Your Honor, the concerned citizens in Precinct 1, served by Commissioner War, stand to lose a lot if the proper authorities do not intervene and this first-time operator, never having run a batch processing plant, is allowed to put a batch processing plant at their intended location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Dr. Ronald Masters.
Good morning. Morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today about air quality concerns. I live in the Foxwood subdivision. We chose to live there because of the rural setting, low traffic, and clean air. We and our neighbors are concerned about the negative influence of this plant, obviously. Concrete batch plants influence air quality in the following specific ways. Dust and particulate matter are created in the transfer materials: silo filling, mixer loading, cement and aggregate weighing, by material handling equipment, wind action across stockpiles of material, dust from paved and unpaved roads. Also, as you've heard, many trucks will be associated with hauling materials and with mixing and those that haul batch concrete. The emissions from these idling trucks are not included in TCEQ's calculated emissions. These emissions are of special concern because of their small particle sizes, you've heard. Quoting from a University of Texas publication on air quality and concrete batch plants, when inhaled, these particles can affect the heart and lungs and cause serious health problems, including increased risks of heart attacks, aggravation of asthma, and decreased lung function. A 300 cubic yard per hour plant limited to 6,000 cubic yards a day will emit 4 pounds total particulate matter per hour in a 24-hour period. That's 96 pounds a day, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. But in the course of a year, it will amount to 30,000 pounds, assuming the plant operates 312 days in a year. That is 15 tons of fine particulate matter that will be released into our neighborhoods. If the plant were only to operate 12 hours a day, that's still almost 8 tons per year of fine particulate matter. Where will this 15 tons go? The EPA and TCEQ use windrose graphs to determine the frequency that wind blows from any direction during each month of the year. For East Texas, they clearly illustrate that the wind direction will frequently be towards our residential areas during each month of the year, literally covering our homes, cars, and swimming pools and filling our lungs with air pollution. This is more than enough to warrant concern about the health of those in our neighborhood with respiratory problems, our children, other family members, and pets. This plant should not be allowed adjacent to residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Masters. Stephen Lang. Up next, after Mr. Lang, will be Mr. John Atkinson. His is the last one that I've received. If you have one that you filled out that you haven't yet gotten up here, now's the time to get it to me.
Good morning. Honorable Judge Moran, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Stephen Lang, and I'm representing myself and the families of the Wood Hollow subdivision. We're a bedroom community of 100-plus homes that are united in protest against Tycon Ready Mix and their proposed air quality permit with TCEQ. We have serious health and safety concerns for our families due to the proposed location of this facility. Many of us moved here to invest in a quiet community and paid for a quality of life that we're about to lose. We are here today to pass along our grievances to the court to help utilize due process in defense of our community. This proposed batch plant has the potential to release particulate matter and other contaminants into the air, which may include silicate, calcium carbonate, lime, or other chemical components associated with the production of concrete. This particulate matter can cause respiratory distress, and long-term exposure may cause onset of lung disorders such as asthma, COPD, and cancer. It can also lead to the onset and complication of allergies, including that of the eyes, and irritation from excessive foreign matter in air. These same contaminants can negatively influence runoff and stream water chemistry that affects fish and wildlife resources. Industrial development in this area is unacceptable. This plant will greatly influence traffic patterns, as we have heard, on Burkett Road, Spruce Hill, and FM 2868. Potential hours of operation would be from 1:30 a.m. until 8:30 p.m., minimum 5 days a week. In addition to road damage and vehicle damage from debris on the road, noise and light pollution will render mute the very reason that many of us moved to this community. I expect to be united today with other subdivisions and concerned citizens over 340 homes within this radius, some directly across the street from the proposed entrance, less than 300 feet away. 2 are immediately adjacent, one north and south. The site is next door to one church, within 1,800 feet of another, and 2,800 feet due north of a community campus which averages 1,400 worshipers on a Sunday morning. This plant will lower personal property values and may end up being a liability to our portion of the county, as we have heard. We could see property values drop 15 to 20% and end up being a liability to our residential community. My wife and I just moved to Flint in 2018, taking 8 months to find a secluded neighborhood in which we plan to retire, close to family, school, work, and church. We feel this will negatively affect the area just when positive growth is coming with the widening of Old Jacksonville Highway, our new fire station just a few blocks away, and we were looking forward to much of this, but not this plant. This protest and list of detrimental impacts to the environment, health, safety, and personal property has been forwarded to all related public officials for tax collection, noise, traffic, and wildlife for which they may have jurisdiction to exercise whatever legal means or influence afforded in this matter. So I'd ask the members of the court and other representatives of the people, and mostly important, Tycon, to put people first before profit, to follow the spirit of the law rather than the letter. The letter says this plant may exist in unincorporated areas of the county that are not zoned. It may exist within a statutory distance of influence to personal property and is loosely aligned with allowable environmental limits that have undetermined effects based on length of exposure. so it meets the minimums. It's just good enough, but it's not the best site, nor is it in the best interest of the residents of Flint and Smith County. I asked the site executives, I asked the executives of Tycon, would you live within 440 yards of this plant? Would you allow this activity within the residential communities of your hometown of Cypress, Texas, shadowing your families and your children? I think not. And I finish with Proverbs 21, verse 2. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. We appreciate any help you could provide us, and thank you for your time and listening to our concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate it very much. I agree with every speaker previous, what they had to say, I agree with. A couple of things that weren't said come to mind. First of all, we wouldn't even be here if this was a commercial development for a grocery store or shopping center or something else that would benefit our community. This concrete plant will not benefit our community. We are all very, very much opposed to it, and we're prepared for a long fight. So that's not going to be very profitable for Tycon. I would suggest they get an alternate site in a more rural area where it doesn't impact homeowners. The health, to me, the health of the women, children, elderly, and all of us in between is primary concern, but also the wildlife. Someone mentioned the wildlife and the squirrels earlier. One of the things I've noticed last year and a half, I've paid taxes in Smith County for 40 years, by the way, but we've been out at Flint for a year and a half, and one of the things I like the most is the wildlife, and I mean by that the birds. We have owls that you could hear at night. We have hawks that you can see and hear. We have all kind of birds. We have the state bird of Texas, the mockingbird. We have bluebirds. We have such a great community as it is, but all of that's going to go away. When you pollute the air, you're not only hurting people, but you're hurting the birds. We won't have mockingbirds or hawks or owls. The contaminants will drive them away. So I'm strongly opposed, and the only thing I can add that wasn't said was I talked to someone that was in the concrete business at one time, and he said, well, they will use water to water down the ingredients, but you know, that doesn't last long. We have a lot of heat here in Texas, and that'll evaporate, and there'll still be plenty of dust. I drove past a plant over on 155 yesterday, and you could see a haze of pollution all around that plant over there. So the same thing will happen with us. They'll spray water on it occasionally, but it'll evaporate. The noise is something that's going to be a big factor. All the forklifts and trucks making that obnoxious sound that trucks and forklifts make when they back up, that is going to be night and day. And people that are sensitive or have keen hearing, they're not going to be able to sleep. They're not going to be able to go to sleep or stay asleep. It won't affect me too much because I'm hard of hearing, but everybody else will be. It's just not good, and an alternate site needs to be considered by the Tycon people. Thank you very much for your consideration and for Tycon's consideration for not building this plant here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. I've received no other public participation forums with respect to this issue, so I want to open it up to discussion by the court. Commissioner Warr, I'm going to come to you.
Judge, I think there may be one more wanting to turn in.
Come on up.
Good morning.
And before you get started, there's a couple of phones that have gone off a couple of times, so let's make sure to silence your cell phone if you have a phone. Thank you.
I silenced mine. Sorry about
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Seguin. I figured you did. You've done enough public speaking. You know better than to leave your phone on. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. My name's Mark Seguin, and I live off of County Road 140 in Flint. And we purchased, my wife and I purchased the land back in 2017. We bought 6 acres, which includes a 3-acre lake in our front yard. It is crystal clear down to about 4 feet. We're right behind Wood Hollow subdivision. We are frequented by deer. We've had deer a few times. We've had lots of red fox. We've got the squirrels. We have beautiful birds that come in, all kinds of migrating ducks that land in our pond. And we have woods right beside us. I mean, we just have a beautiful place that we chose because it was so tranquil. And you're right. Somebody mentioned at night, you know, the owls we can hear. We have hawks. We have nesting hawks right around our lake. Our lake is full of fish. Let me know and I'll let y'all fish sometime. But the thing is, at nighttime we can see the stars. They're really bright. And we just love this place. I mean, we chose to move there to be a part of the community, to retire there long term when we're through working. So, you know, I was really excited to see Old Jacksonville get wider so it's not so dangerous coming off County Road 140 and all that. And it's really depressing to think of a concrete plant coming in. And I have a best friend that owns a concrete plant here in Smith County. So I'm not against business. I am for another concrete plant if we need it. I am for businesses growing and prospering in our area. But I think we need to do it methodically. And so I would ask the court, I don't know what you can do, what options there are, but if there's anything you can do to help us prevent it from coming right there. I mean, I feel everybody's pain, and y'all are a lot closer than me. I'm within the mile. I'm about 3/4 of a mile. But nonetheless, I'm worried about my lake. It's a beautiful lake, and gobs of creatures are there, and fish and stuff, and just the quality. So whatever we can do, whatever I can help do, I'm glad to go help them scope out land. I've said I'm glad to, you know, put whatever I can towards it. So if there's anything you all can do, we beg of you, please do something for us to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seguin. Any other public participation forms that I have not received? All right, let's open it up for discussion with the court. And Commissioner Warr, I will come to you first, but then I also want to come to Mr. Wilson, our attorney. I want to at least talk about in open session the doctrine of preemption, because this can be really important to our discussion today. And we do have an executive session item set on this to get a full legal briefing, and some of those matters, of course, you can understand from a legal perspective we can't talk about in open session, but I actually want to be very liberal about some of that discussion today in open court, unusually so because of the important nature of this discussion today, and so that you understand exactly where our hands are tied and what we can and can't do. Commissioner Warr?
Yes, thank you. Many of you I've known for 30+ years, some of you longer than that, and many of you also know that I live rather close to there, just over on Beddingfield Road, and I've talked to dozens and dozens of people about this issue in the last few weeks. I want to thank Judge Moran for reshuffling everything excuse me, on the agenda and putting this #1 item, so I know you're all busy. I thought it was important to have this venue, even though as I've told many of you, no permit ever comes to Smith County. You know, counties in Texas do not have zoning. If you live next door to undeveloped land, there's very little impact, with very few exceptions, that county government is involved, unlike in a city where you have planning and zoning. But I think the testimony that I've heard, certainly the letters that have been written have been very well written. You've got some great spokesmen like Todd, and I think if you enter those in, and I'm no expert in it at all, but with the TCQ and the influence that you would have just in the sheer numbers, I've got to believe that would encourage the company to at least explore the options of moving to a more industrial area. I want to thank Matt Schaefer's office for being here, and Senator Hughes also. I know they've been involved in actively working to try to address this issue with respect of all of our neighbors and our friends. And it is a very fast-growing area. When Judge Duncan and my son were over at Owens, it was a 4-way stop sign there at Gresham, and now we're extremely busy. So we've all seen it grow, and I hope we can address this in a way that's beneficial to everyone. So thank you for your time for coming in.
Mr. Wilson, talk briefly about the doctrine of preemption, and then I've got some comments that relate to that and some other items as well. Go ahead.
Yes, Judge and Commissioner. So the doctrine of preemption applies to state, federal, and even county and local governments. And specifically with regards to this issue, Smith County did enact a heavy haul ordinance in 2011. We also had a weights and measures officer who kind of was the enforcement arm of that heavy haul ordinance. However, under Texas Transportation Code 623.011, the state laws also have the ability to permit for these type of activities throughout the state. So TxDOT can actually preempt our current enforcement mechanism that we have. So unfortunately, while we could permit them, if they go and get a state permit, it makes our permit moot, and we do not have the ability to enforce that, because there are several lines of, there's a line of cases out of the Texas Supreme Court that deals specifically with this issue, as well as several recent Attorney General's opinions put out by Attorney General Ken Paxton, who have also upheld this preemption doctrine. So that's the issue with regards to our heavy haul ordinance. There is also a long-standing line of cases out of the Supreme Court, Canales v. Laughlin, that essentially says that the county cannot enforce its regulatory authority unless it is given the ability to do so through either statute or through the Constitution. So we do not have the ability, and the legislature has not given us the ability to have code enforcement per se, or to have zoning ordinances. So at this point, there is not a lot that the county can do with regards to permitting that would affect this specific tract of land.
And to be clear, when you're talking about permitting, you're not talking about like the TSEC permitting. That's separate. You're talking about the heavy haul possibility that exists. But in fact, there's some statutes that say that's preempted even at the state level by state statutes. So even if we were to try to enforce that, that actually wouldn't go anywhere, because once the state permits this, they're able to drive on our roads even if they're too heavy.
Yes, and our actual heavy haul ordinance says that on page 7 in footnote 6, that a valid and current state permit issued by the Texas Department of Transportation under the specific code referenced in the transportation codes preempts this order.
Judge, one thing I'd like to mention, of course, is Frank Davis in the corner in the end over there is our county road engineer, and he's we just recently have done Spruce Hill and Burkett Road, and so much like happens with oil and gas activity in the county, we will document the condition of that road this week, anticipating if we're I guess we're not fortunate enough to get them to open somewhere else. Any damage to the road, we can recoup that, but we have to prove those damages were caused by them, which we have done in the past. So I just want to bring that to attention. But same way that oil companies get around, or timber companies, our limit we put on them, they just go get the state permit and then they can drive on any county road. And most of them come with it, actually. So.
Yeah, so thank you for that that conversation there, Mr. Wilson, because that's very important, because that was one of the first things we talked about, was trying to figure out how we could utilize that heavy haul permit statute to maybe get involved in this situation on the front end, but really it doesn't do anything for us. First of all, here's what I want to say to all the folks that are here today. I want to applaud your efforts. This is actually one of the most well-organized and well-spoken defenses or debates or conversations about an issue that's come to this court. And even if we cannot do anything substantively for you today, I think the forum, and that was what Commissioner Warr and I discussed in putting it on this agenda, was we wanted to make sure that there was a forum to air the grievances and to make this a very public discussion, and to make sure that you had an opportunity to have your voice heard in a very public manner, because quite frankly, that's as important as anything. Continue that conversation with the state officials. I want to echo each of your concerns. The concerns that you have, if I lived in your area, I would be saying the exact same things. I would echo the exact same concerns and have the same issues. Here's what I want to touch on as a county judge, because I think this goes to a larger issue that I want to be able to communicate today, and that is not just the doctrine of preemption, but this issue of local control. You need to always keep in mind one of these days that when you hear somebody wanting to erode local control at the state or the national level, your radar antennas need to go up and red flags need to go up, because local control matters. It matters, and when the state ties our hands here on the local level and doesn't allow us to get involved substantively on behalf of you, the citizens that we can hear from, that we see day to day, that's problematic. And it happens every time the legislature meets. Every time they meet, they believe in Austin, as well-intentioned as they are, that they have better wisdom, more guidance, and more appropriate authority to exercise than we do here on the local level. And that simply is not true, because it is easier for you to show up in this court and to influence decisions locally and for us to intervene for you locally than it is for you to go all the way down to Austin and to try to talk to some TSEC commissioner that doesn't know who you are, doesn't live down the street from you, and doesn't really care, honestly, about what you think. But we do here in Smith County. So let me just urge you, every time the legislature decides to meet, and every time you hear this issue of local control, you need to think to yourself, I want control to be local. I want the control to be with the cities and counties where I know who my commissioner is and who my city council person is, so that I can get in their ear and they can make a difference for me. Because in issues like this and in a myriad of other issues, we have zero authority to intersect on your behalf. And that's frustrating to me. It's very frustrating that this issue is so important to you and my hands are tied. And I just want you to know that. But it goes to a larger issue as well. Any other comments before I offer a suggestion on perhaps at least one measure that we can do? All right. I know I got on my soapbox there, but it's pretty frustrating.
Well, I appreciate what you said there, Judge. I echo everything you said.
All right. One thing that I think we can do, Commissioner Ward, this is your district, and as the judge of the county, and I'm going to send this over to Mr. Wilson just to get formal opinion on this, but what I would like to be able to do is to get this court to authorize you and I to draft correspondence, at least to TSEC, on behalf of the court, and express our concerns and express support for the citizens that have expressed their concerns here today, and to make sure that we can intersect and interface with TSEC on behalf of this court going forward through this process. We haven't drafted that letter. We wanted to hear the concerns today, but I think we can get the court to authorize us to jointly draft a letter that would go on behalf of this court to TSEC to offer those concerns. Anybody think that's a bad idea or have an opposition to that? Yes, ma'am.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, because in my district, I am faced with a lot of concrete plants, sand pits, and all that stuff. So if we're going to do it and we're going to send a letter, let's make it countywide, that we're concerned for the whole county, not just one section.
I like that, Judge. Thank you for making that suggestion earlier. And I agree that continue with the efforts and the writing to the TCQ. I think that hopefully will have an impact. And then as the hearing comes available, I think they've set maybe a actual true hearing date. Hopefully they'll have one here locally. Then we'll have a letter of record there with our stance. So, thank you.
Yeah, your voice matters. The louder you speak, the more often you speak, the more influential you're going to be. So continue to band together and proceed as a unified front. I think that's going to get you a long way. All right, so I would make a motion to authorize Commissioner Warren and Judge Moran to jointly draft and send correspondence to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and any other regulatory agencies of the state on behalf of this court, expressing concerns and opinions relating to the TSEC application for a new concrete batch plant proposed to be located on County Road 139, TSEC customer number CN 605-733-740 and permit number 159582. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is that sufficiently broad enough?
Yes, Your Honor, and to Commissioner Hampton's point, I would add in there for the record that it would also authorize the county to send a letter on behalf of the entire citizens of Smith County related to specific environmental issues. And I think we can make it generally broad enough that would encompass everything that we need to cover.
Yeah, I think probably my motion would be broad enough to cover that. So that certainly is intended in that motion. We've got a motion. Who made the second?
I made the second.
You made the second, Commissioner War. Any further discussion?
This is nothing regulatory. It's just a letter of support, basically offering support for the. Okay.
Yeah, offering support on behalf of the citizens and also expressing our concerns that have been expressed here today about
And
this.
even just related to that, excuse me, that we would be more brought into the loop early on. You know, we don't find out about any of these things until really public knowledge or the press lets us know on the normal case.
And that's something that can be addressed through the legislature as well. I don't believe there is a notification to the
Governing bodies.
county early on in the process. There is a notification process to the county once it gets through the process, but in reading the regulations, there does not appear to be an early notification to the county. So that may be something the legislature can address this next session.
Just out of curiosity, so are we saying that our local TSEC office has not been notified about this?
I am not sure.
Because we have a local office.
Well, we did get notice in January of this application.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But it only goes, I think, to the judge, perhaps, and maybe I saw something to Ed Broussard with the city.
That's
which
right.
I
It
thought
goes to
was
the city
interesting.
and the county.
Not to the commissioner of the district.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Again, with my apologies to the folks here that we can't do more for you. This is not something that we regulate. The state does not give us that authority, and the state is the one that either is going to give it to us or not, and they have not given that to us. So we'll do our best to keep you in the front of our mind and communicate your concerns to the state level, but march forward. Okay? Thank you for being here today. Item number 2 on the agenda is consider and take necessary action to approve an order authorizing Texas Independence Day fireworks sales within Smith County pursuant to Texas Occupations Code Section 2154.202H2. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, Judge and Commissioners, this is a standard. I'll wait a little bit until the room clears.
We'll wait just one moment while our guests exit.
Oh, you can't go out that way.
No, sir, no.
No.
I'm not with him. I don't want to leave him. I don't want to have any support. Okay. I wasn't going to say I agree with him. Okay, because I'm not there. I mean, I got afraid the chicken people going to be up here now, but the flies and all that, we're going to do the same thing with them. Less government control. Because next thing you know, somebody will be wanting a chicken in the backyard, neighbor complaining.
Okay, I'm going to recall item number 2. Consider and take necessary action to approve an order authorizing Texas Independence Day fireworks sales within Smith County pursuant to Texas Occupations Code 2154.202H2. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, Judge and Commissioners, this is an item that we take up annually. This is one of those things that the legislature does allow us to regulate, and I'll leave it to Marshall Brooks to discuss the ability for fireworks sales in Smith County.
Marshall?
Morning, Your Honor, Commissioners Court. Just like to say, you know, we are in still in a slight drought, so we've got some long-term deficit. However, our ground moistures are absolutely perfect. And so I would say that the conditions exist that this would not pose a threat of life or safety to property.
Good, thank you. Is there a motion to approve an order authorizing Texas Independence Day fireworks sales within Smith County pursuant to Texas Occupations Code Section 2154.202H2?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Hampton and a second by Commissioner Phillips. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 2 passes unanimously. Item 3 on the agenda, consider and take necessary action to approve a professional service consulting agreement between Smith County, Texas Anti-Gang Task Force, and Kellogg Leadership and Management, LLC, for administration of the Smith County tag and authorize the county judge to sign all related documentation. Here with us this morning is the sheriff and also Don Martin, who is the person on behalf of Kellogg Leadership and Management LLC, and also the owner of that entity that will actually be doing the work for us, and we're so happy about that. Sheriff, you want to say anything?
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Don Martin was selected by the Executive Committee of the TAG Board as the TAG Administrator, and this is a mechanism by which he can be a contract employee of the county and be compensated.
Good. And any questions for the sheriff or Mr. Martin?
I just can't think of a better person to head it up than Don. So thank you, Don. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, he's somebody the community has known and trusted for a whole lot of time, and so we're really happy to have him on behalf of the TAG to administer this great Texas Anti-Gang Task Force.
This is just a pass-through, right, Sheriff, for his payment on?
Yes, it's reimbursable by the governor's office via a grant.
Just out of curiosity, when that thing gonna be up and running? Is it up and running yet?
We have a meeting next Monday with everybody that's going to be involved and be actually housed at the TAG, as well as their administrators from each separate department. After that, we look to be fully operational probably March 1st. Brookshire's was very generous in remodeling the facility, and we have the last furniture moving in, I believe, this Friday.
Good. Is there a motion to approve a professional service consulting agreement between Smith County, Texas Anti-Gang Task Force, and Kellogg Leadership and Management LLC for administration of the Smith County TAG, and authorize the county judge to sign all related documentation?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Warr.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Nix. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 3 passes unanimously. Item 4, consider and take necessary action to authorize the purchasing director to advertise, solicit, and receive sealed proposals for RFP 11-20 Land and Vital Records Management System for Smith County. Ms. Gould.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Karen Phillips and Mr. Don Bell's office and myself have been working for quite a few months on this RFP. This RFP will enhance the current environment and the operations with the latest technologies that would be available to Smith County, and we're requesting to advertise, solicit, and receive sealed proposals.
All right, any questions by the court? If not, is there a motion to authorize the purchasing director to advertise, solicit, and receive sealed bids for RFP 11-20 Land and Vital Records Management System for Smith County?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hampton. Second by Commissioner Nix. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 4 passes unanimously. Item 5 is a notice-only item. It's receive pipe and/or utility line installation request for County Road 3183, CenterPoint Energy, install 2-inch plastic pipe and right-of-way for Service Precinct 4. County Road 313, Sand Flat Water Supply, install water line and right-of-way for Service Precinct 3. And County Road 489, CenterPoint Energy, install 130 feet of pipe for Service Precinct 4. County Road 4155, TWS Management, Inc., road bore for Service Precinct 4. No action is needed on that item. It is notice only. Item number 6, approve and to ratify payment of accounts, bills, payroll, transfer funds, amendments, and health claims. Any one of those you guys want to talk about individually? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve and to ratify the payment of all accounts, bills, payroll, transfer of funds, amendments, and health claims presented this week?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Warr. Second by Commissioner Phillips. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 6 passes unanimously. Item 7, report on Smith County jail status and related information. Captain Shoemaker.
Yes, sir, Judge, Commissioners. We have 70 for our federal count, 896 for Smith County count. We have 2 out of county. TDC chain we have scheduled as 8. Paper ready we have 18. Our peak population, which was on 2/1 of 20, was 921. Pro violators we have 28. Pro violators with new charges we have 56. Child support we have 7. Child support with new charges we have 1. Pretrial misdemeanors we have 54. Pretrial felonies we have 469. Inmates at the emergency room we have 3. And we have 32 openings.
Any questions for Captain Shoemaker? Okay, hearing no questions for Captain Shoemaker, that concludes our every portion of our meeting except for executive session. And before we go into executive session, I'm just going to ask if there's any member of the court that needs to go into executive session to talk about that item. Number 8, deliberation consultation with attorney regarding the proposed Tycon Ready Mix LLC proposed facility on County Road 139, TSEC customer number CN 605733740 and permit number 159582. And I'll pose that. Mr. Wilson, if there's more that you want to say to us, we can do that. Or if there's a member of the court that has a question, we can go into executive session to do that. If not, we've talked about some of that in public. We don't have to do that.
And it's up to y'all. There is a little bit more information that would not be extensive that I can individually talk to each commissioner about if they have an interest in it. Otherwise, I'll leave that discretion to y'all.
Well, I tell you what, let's do a short executive session. I doubt that it's going to last very long, but let's get the remainder of that information to the court. Generally, so for purposes permitted by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.071, we're going to go into executive session under specifically Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for consultation with our attorney under the item I just read into the record. When we come back in open session, we're not going to have anything to do but just adjourn. You're welcome to stick around. I bet this will last less than 5 minutes probably. So let's clear the courtroom. We stand in recess.